When you are dividing polynomials and this first coefficient here is not a 1, then we have another issue. It needs to be a 1 in order to do synthetic division. You could do long division and leave it 2y minus 1, but I don't think you're going to want to do that. So let me show you how to do synthetic division this way. You're going to have to start by dividing. Whatever is in front of the variable, we're going to have to divide by that. So I have to divide that by 2, which means I have to divide everything by 2. Okay, so then this 2 cancels. So now when I do synthetic division, I have a y minus a half. And I know it's a fraction, we're going to have to deal with it. So you do the opposite of this, which is going to be a positive 1/2, and that's what goes out front. And now we're going to take all these coefficients that have been divided by 2. So 4 divided by 2, we have a 2. Here we'll have a minus 3. Here we'll have a 2. And here we'll have a negative 1/2. Now you do all the exact same steps. So you bring the first number down. Then you're going to do half of 2. Now most of these fraction problems are going to be pretty simple. Half of 2 is 1. Then you add these, you get negative 2. Half of negative 2 is negative 1. And then you add these and you get 1. Half of 1, half times 1 is just a half. And when you add these, you get 0, which means no remainder. That makes life a little easier. The remainder problems, we're going to have some extra steps to. So now I take my answer, which was a 2, these numbers here, drop it down a power. So my answer is going to be 2y squared minus 2y plus 1. Not so bad. That's when there's no remainder. On this next problem, we are going to work through this problem. So remember what this means. When it just says, if it says simplify, because the directions might just say that, it might not even say divide. But you have to remember that when there's a negative 1 here, that means that you're going to flip this to the bottom. So it's like having 6y squared minus 5y minus 15 over 2y plus 3, which means it's dividing. So I'm going to have 6y squared minus 5y minus 15 divided by 2y plus 3. And you might want to write it like that, because remember what we have to do next is we have to divide, because it's not just a y. So I'm going to have to divide that by 2 to get it to just be a y, which means I divide everything by 2. So now I'm going to have a negative 3/2 out front. And here I'm going to have a 3 because I'm dividing by 2. Here I'll have a negative 5/2 and a negative 15/2. Always check to make sure there were no powers skipped, because then you'd have to fill in a 0. So don't let the fractions bother you. Notice they have common denominators. It's really not that bad. So we're going to bring down the first number. When you multiply this off to the side, remember that when you're multiplying fractions, you can just multiply across. So you'll get negative 9/2. And leave them in proper fractions, because you're going to add them. Negative 5 plus negative 9 is negative 14. So we have negative 14/2, which is negative 7. So then I multiply. So negative 3 times the negative 7, because this is like 7 over 1. So I'm going to get 21/2. And when I add these, I get 6/2, which simplifies to 3. This is my remainder. So when I write this out, I drop the power down 1, so I get 3y minus 7 plus my remainder, 3 over what I divided by. This is the tricky part, because remember I divided by y plus 3/2. So that's awkward, because I don't really want to have a fraction there. Remember when I divided by 2? Well, I'm going to put it back. So I'm going to multiply the top and bottom by 2. I'm not doing these by 2, just this last term. So my answer I get is 3y minus 7. And then for my remainder portion, 3 times 2 is 6. And basically I'm just putting the 2 back. I'm multiplying the 2 by the y plus 3/2, and I get 2y plus 3, which is what I had to begin with. But that's my answer. So it's not, that 3 actually gets multiplied by a 2, so we end up with a 6 in that spot. So that's a little tricky when you have a remainder. So I'm going to do another one with a remainder. So I'm going to write this out, 6t cubed plus 5t squared minus 2t plus 1 divided by 3t plus 1. So we're going to divide by 3 with everything. So we end up with a negative 1/3 out front. Don't forget to do the opposite. That's a common mistake people make. Here we'll have a 2, a 5/3, a negative 2/3, and a 1/3. And again, making sure no power skipped, so I didn't need any zeros. Bring down the first number. 1/3 times 2 is 2/3, but it's negative, so negative 2/3. Notice I have common denominator, so that's easy. So when we 5/3 minus 2/3, we get 3/3, which is 1. Here I multiply, I get negative 1/3. I add, I get negative 3/3, which is negative 1. Here I multiply, they're both negative, so I get a positive 1/3. Notice these don't cancel. I'm left with 2/3. This is my remainder. So I take my coefficients, drop the power down 1, so that's going to be squared. So we get 2t squared plus 1t minus 1, and then my remainder is positive, so it's going to be plus 2/3 over what I divided by, which was t plus 1/3. Because remember, it's after I canceled out that I divided everything by 3. So now, just like we did in the last problem, this time I'm going to put the 3 back. So I'm going to multiply for my remainder term only, multiply top and bottom by 3. And when I do that, I'll have 2t squared plus t minus 1. So here I'll have, now notice here the 3's cancel, so I'm not going to double this and make this a 6. The 3's cancel, which just makes this a 2. And then when I put the 3 back, I have 3t plus 1, which is what we originally had. So this is how I would write my answer. You go ahead and try this problem. Pretty sure this is one with a remainder, so give it a try. So this is what you get before you deal with the remainder issue. So then from here, remember that we want to put the 2 back. I divided out of 2, now I'm going to put it back. So I'm multiplying top and bottom by 2. So I get 4y squared minus 8y plus 6 plus, now this time there wasn't a fraction here, so I am going to multiply the 2 by 2 and get 4. And here we have a 2x plus, 2y. These should have been y's. Sorry about that. 2y plus 1, which that means my answer is B. Okay, so you're going to be doing some problems like this. Come back to the video and rewatch how to do those remainder problems, or you can look at some examples in your textbook.